Start the line?
Yep, there we go. All set.
We're all set?
Awesome.
Perfect, thanks. Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, September 13th, 2024. This is a meeting of the Weston Board of Education Financial Facilities and Operations Committee. We have a quorum. And the first item, hey, Michael, the first item on the agenda is an update on facilities and ground maintenance.
Sounds good. All right, so last time we had spoken, we were down a guy still in the middle school. That continues. So we're personnel-wise, we're down one custodian middle school. The decision was made, Phil, myself, Lisa, we just decided to hire a temporary position just for the 24-25 school year. We did a pre-screening of candidates and we held interviews this week. So we're looking to move forward. A little introduction with Dan Doak, principal at the middle school. And if all goes well, the end of this month, first week of October, we'll be fully staffed. It looks like at this point, the gentleman won't be back until January or so, but it seems like we just get real-time updates as they come to us. So we don't really know there's no hard return to work date with that.
Yeah, and I think January may be a little bit on the optimistic side.
Yeah.
The dates that we've been receiving in terms of a return to work has been moving since this happened. So this person went out in January, and the initial, based on the injury at that time, he should have returned to work in mid-July. But there are other issues, other complications relating to this injury that's caused him to be out longer than anticipated. Let's call them the person assigned to the case at Kerma is pretty much saying that all the injuries are related. So they have extended his workers' comp injury further. As it relates to the district from a financial responsibility, per the contract, anything beyond 26 weeks, we're no longer funding or making them whole. But this time, the individual is only receiving compensation from Kerma. The district is no longer paying this individual. So net, we're hoping to be pretty much level in terms of this new hire that we have that will take us hopefully for the remainder of the school year. And based on our discussion, there's a lot of benefits to having this additional person in district. We do have indication that some individuals may also be going out for surgery, which will put us down from a staffing perspective. So that's looking ahead. That's some of the reasons why we made this decision.
So when you do that, and a person goes off of our payroll, what happens to their health insurance? Is that picked up by Kerma as well?
It does not, because you're technically still our employee, so we do have the responsibility to continue their health insurance.
So we just don't pick up their salary?
Correct.
And then the individual that you engage, is there a significant difference in compensation?
No, it will be. So this is a union position, so it will fall on the union scale. So there will not be anything significant. And within the union, between us, there's not a lot of difference in between the steps for year one. So this person will be on the first step up, and I think for this particular group, they go up to 6 steps.
Yeah, but you hired this person.
We have not hired, but we have interviewed.
Oh, you've interviewed.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. So just to be clear, you're interviewing for a full-time position, but more of that'll turn into a floater once this other individual comes back?
For the remainder of this school year, correct.
For the remainder of the school year, but it'll be an employee.
It will be an employee, correct.
So it will be an employee beyond the school year.
No. So let's assume that we hire this person, everything goes as planned, and we hire this. He starts in June. The contract that he will sign will be that this position will last from the day he starts until June 30th. So at June 30th, this position terminates.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I'll continue with the update. Summer, as we know, was pretty hot and wet. It was typical. It was pretty much catch-up time with all of our smaller projects, larger projects, maintenance. We've done some repairs in the buildings, and custodians have done quite a bit of flipping with painting. Pretty much like for like, other than the middle school where our lead custodian, our interim lead custodian has really stepped up and brightened the place up, some different paint. School actually looks great. We've done some pressure washing of the north sides of our buildings for mildew. You know, the sun doesn't hit, clean them off. Walkways, some patios. HVAC equipment's been washed down. Filter changes, everything's been maintained. All the PMs are complete. As our track was milled, which is a capital project I'll get into in the second item, but the millings we were able to repurpose. We did this in-house with our maintenance crew. We repurposed the millings to the back of the middle school behind the gated fence. I'm sure you've seen if you've been back there, it was just dirt. So now that's been milled. We rented a machine for shipping. We rented a roller to compact the millings. So the rear of the middle school was one location. Second location was underneath the bleachers where we're going to use for storage for the track equipment and sporting equipment. And we also did the bus driver's parking lot at the bus garage, maintenance bus garage. So that's all been milled, rolled, and sealed.
I just want to sing some praises to our maintenance staff. I always say that we are fortunate to have these guys in place because they've saved us a significant amount of money. You know, if we were to do all of these things using a third party, you know, the cost would be a lot higher than what it is right now. So, you know, just a shout out to the maintenance team.
Pretty much, other than that, it's just been status quo. It's a great start of the school year. A few weeks in, we hope it continues. A lot of success. Weather's changed, which we're all in favor of. For the update, that's all I have for you guys, unless you guys have any questions.
Yeah, I just have a question. The security projects that we've started, Phil, Mike?
The security project that were outlined in the capital budget for this year, those projects have all been completed. We're in the final phases of fine-tuning the equipment and everything else that was there, but that's all completed.
Okay.
If not 100%, I would say we are at least 98%.
Great. Thank you.
And I was going to ask about paving. I'm a beneficiary of one of the paving projects, but what did we pave and how did it go? Great.
The paving, I was going to get through with the capital line, but I could talk about that now. Sure. So the paving, we did 3 locations, and we'll be doing a little bit more as we move forward. But the 3 locations right now were the drop-off loop, the parent drop-off loop of the intermediate school. That's the sidewalk line to the curb from the last curve all the way out, probably about 225, 250 feet, sidewalk to curb. It took that recessed piece off where we kept holding water and ice would build. That was taken out. It was raised a tad so that we could get some of the water out of there as opposed to the way it had been back pitched before. So the intermediate school was one location. The driveway leading to the rear of the middle school was another location. This goes from School Road to roughly the parking area in the back. It did not include the parking lot at this point for Revson or the main parking lot. We're hoping for that to be put on for next year. But this also included integrated speed humps that are made of asphalt to keep the traffic a little bit slower because that's where the crosswalk is for the teacher's parking lot. The other location is the rear of the high school. And this was the driveway and into the loading dock, parking spaces that lead to the back, science building, the 2-story building in back, and all the little nooks and crannies that are back there. That's about 95% complete. Punch list that I walked through with the paving company last week. They'll be taken care of. They have some number issues they have to take care of. Some things, parking spot had gotten missed, just minor things, cleaning up of the curb line. So those are the 2 locations that we had done.
I think middle school is great. It's certainly
It
safer
came out nice.
than it had been, yeah.
And Phil, it's my understanding that the Department of Public Works has been in touch with you regarding town paving bus.
Yes, I spoke with Larry yesterday.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's going to be the stop sign on School Road heading to the access road to the intermediate school. So it's going to be School Road from that stop sign leading up to the S curve heading to the high school. So it's a few hundred feet, just a straightaway. It looks like it's going to start either late next week or early the following.
Mhm.
They're going to only be on the road from 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. That way it doesn't impede on any of our traffic. It's going to probably be a 2 to 3 day project if everything goes well as they will have a flagger on site, likely to be a 1-lane road from 9 to 2 to possibly 3 days.
And then coordinating bus routes with paving schedule of Phil, is there anything?
No, I think, well, we have been overall, when just townwide paving projects, we have been coordinating with the bus garage. So the DPW do send correspondence out to the bus garage. And if we have to make modifications to the route, we do that, and we also inform the families. So far, based on what's currently being done, there's been minimal impact to families and to the routes themselves.
And what about the turning lane, the traffic light on Route 50?
So far, we haven't received any further update from the DPW in terms of when that'll be done. I think that's a state project. But again, once we get there, we'll do a lot of coordination with DPW, the state, and with the bus garage. Typically, for most of our projects, we do it in such a way that will have minimal impact to the buses. And if there is, we give priority, or DPW / the town or / the state will give priority to our buses.
Okay.
How about Earlbud drop off? Do you foresee any disruptions?
No, I think based on the grading that we received for the drop off at Hurlbut, that's in good condition. So we at this time we're not planning, not in the near term, to do any pavement or repairs to the drop off loop.
I was referring to when they're fixing the light, right? Because that corner has two dynamics. One is the bus ingress and outgress, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the Earlbud drop off sort of winds their way through.
Yeah. But again, so once we're there, we'll definitely coordinate with the town for minimal impact for arrival and dismissal.
Okay, sorry. Michael, you have any questions?
No, I'm good. I have a couple questions about capital projects updates, but I think Mike's going to get into that now.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't we just move on to that?
Okay. Capital, like Phil had mentioned, with security initiatives, it's in process, about 90% complete. We have consulting fees for facility renovations. We've been working hand in hand with Colliers. Also going to get into some RFPs now that school is in and all the capital is wrapping up and projects have moved forward to North House, HVAC, and a couple other projects that we have. The Weston High School front step replacement was done in August. Unfortunately, for some unforeseen reason, we have a couple of cracks that go front to back. I've spoken with the contractor. We did a walkthrough already. The only remedy is to start over. So this will be, if we can get a break with decent weather, whether that's Christmas, likely not winter break, very possibly spring break. So it really has to be demoed. Expansion joints need to be added. Very unfortunate. It cracked within probably 3 days and no one really understands why. They're going to do a little bit of a facelift to it just to make it more appeasing to the eye and not to let too much water go there. That way we don't have too much movement through the winter. The district-wide energy audit, Phil and I, well, Phil mostly has been in contact with Chad Magolis. We had a group call a couple weeks back. They sent us a group of contractors that work with the energy audit. One of the companies that is involved with it is ABS, Automated Building System. That's already a company that we work with for our automation, for all of our building management systems. So that is in process. That should be moving forward certainly within this month. Number 5 was the Weston High School window replacement. I believe we had a combination of 42 replaced, whether that's windows or door lights for the main doors that head towards the track, science building. And unfortunately, they continue to fail. So I believe at this point, we have another half a dozen that need to be done. At the time of the walkthrough, the number was where it was. They found 2 more in the summer, so those windows have been added. As soon as they get shipped in, they will put them in. That's minimal work. It won't take them very long, and we'll continue out of operating to keep the windows replaced. The issue an RFP for the recaulking for the high school and intermediate school expansion joints. That is hopeful for one of our breaks. And again, if the weather holds for winter, which normally it's a little too cold, but certainly spring break or as soon as the school dismisses in June, that'll be done. High school makeup air units, all fan motors and wheels, all the mechanical parts are here. They're large motors. This took a little bit longer than we had planned for the equipment to be delivered to the contractor's warehouse, but all demo was done. It's ready to be moved on. So as we get breaks, it's an interior project in our attic space. So this will continue summer through Christmas break. I don't believe Christmas break, even though it is as long as it is this year, that it will be done in one break. Likely this will head into the winter break as well. And that will be complete certainly before school ends. Water system at the high school, that took roughly the entire summer. This was a very, very big project. A lot of demo work from the old existing storage tanks and indirect hot water heaters. Everything had been demoed. Equipment had come in, and this also was, which we were dealing with this COVID. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like it's going to end. Material was very difficult to get in here, but we made it to school. So that is complete. All hot water systems are in. We have redundancy in the new side of the high school because, as you know, that's a shelter when town loses power. So that's a 3-way redundant system. We have 2 hot water heaters to be able to accommodate the building. We have a backup system on the wall. That project is complete. District-wide furniture purchase, administration and all the buildings are working on their plan and the equipment that they're looking to bring in. So that project is actually in motion. I imagine within the next month or 2 or so, things will be ordered and put in place. Number 11 was number 10, Weston High School courtyard renovation. I'm going to sit down with, get a little bit of a committee for the high school and see what their direction is, how they want to move forward with this project. This RFP will be issued, and this work will be done possibly spring break for the start of it. We have a lot of trees, large trees, which are uprooting our pavers, our walkways in that courtyard. So the plan is to possibly get the tree work done spring and have the actual courtyard renovation completed certainly in the summer, but this can start as soon as school ends, which is kind of beneficial because as we get to July 1 and we start issuing POs, it's a little bit late in the process. So now we have a couple of projects that we can actually get started on when school ends in mid-June instead of sitting on our hands for a couple of weeks for capital. Weston Middle School teachers break room AC is complete. Again, it took a little time for the equipment to come in, but that project is up and running. So the teachers break room in the middle school has air conditioning. And that's all I have for you guys for that capital. We have capital from the year before. The track, we had some time restraints with the scheduling for that project. Also, we had some issues with weather, material, but all involved on our end. The town, athletics, track coach, everyone is thrilled with the way it's moving along. It looks great. Striping for the lanes, striping number blocks, number starting, the double-sided pole vault station will be lined. It looks like the 27th, 28th, 29th of this month. The only contingency that we will have is if weather does not cooperate, and then we'll just have to come up with an alternative date. It's about a day to stripe all the line, and then miscellaneous work can happen. So we have 3 days to work with. That was the first weekend that we have no home football game, no soccer, no lacrosse in that field. So this involves no movement of any of our sporting programs. So again, 27, 28, 29, that will be complete, weather permitting. South House bathrooms is about 90% complete, and material was an issue just on one of the code pieces for the tile. So the demo went really quick. Everything went well. And it was a couple weeks of waiting for a piece of material to come in, which was unfortunately the starting point of the tile work. 90% done, 9 bathrooms are complete, 2 in the hallway need to be done. We're going to work on that through the school year. Ideally, it will be 1 and 1. They'll be coming in the evenings to work, do the demo, tile the bathroom up, put the fixtures in. All drop ceiling has been replaced. The exhaust fans are in place, so it's just floor work and wall work. C5 high school. Again, we had some issues with equipment. It took almost 9 months to get the equipment delivered. When it got delivered, there was an issue with one of the coils, so that project was held up, but that is up and running 100%. So C5 high school from Capital 23, that project is now complete. And that's all I have for you guys for capital. I just want to go over one quick project that wasn't capital while we're talking about it, and that is the North House Playground. We had all site work done mid-August. Site work included a swell to get the water off the playground area. What was happened was you had the North House building, and then you had the hill, which led to the playground spot where the mulch was. It would wash the mulch out into the play area and wash it into the baseball field, the softball field. So we put a swell in to divert water with a synthetic material for a divider. We dug down about 12 inches, added all new mulch. At this point, we're waiting on contractor. Again, material, equipment was delayed. So this was supposed to be completed in August. It looks like equipment will be delivered next week. It's going to come in a container. Though little by little, he hasn't gotten into a schedule of install, but it's 2 pieces, 1 demo. We did one of the demos ourselves. Ideally, again, the end of this month, that will be wrapped up with the paving of the actual basketball area, familiar with the location going up School Road. Ideally, that will happen on our Jewish holiday, which is October the 3rd, and then that will all be wrapped up. And that is the end of my capital update for you guys.
I have a question about the playground.
Sure.
Is the footprint remaining the same and the access points remaining the same? There's been no changes to that.
No changes whatsoever. The thought was possibly to go smaller with the asphalt, with more of a play area, but that was brought back to where we were from day one. So it's going to remain just the way you see it now.
And there's I would think there's new fencing or new some sort of control mechanism, right? Because don't we have a sidewalk that walks right by that or something?
We do. At this point, fencing isn't going to change. Not that it won't in the future. But right now it's a 4-foot chain link, so it's possible we could upgrade that to something different. There's no way to really enclose the playground because the way the space is, it really butts right up against the fence. So could we go higher in the future? We certainly could. We'll have to reassess when we have everything in place.
Can we think about that?
Mhm.
Because it's just too accessible to that side.
I think we have had, Lisa had mentioned, just to add security fence in a few of our playgrounds. And if you think about it, right, it's not necessarily all just the fence line for the sidewalk. It's the entire field as well. So
Right.
the entire area. So if we're going to build a fence, the fence cannot just. I think we really have to think about it. It's not just along the fence line, but it's the entire perimeter that surrounds it,
That's
which
right.
will go from the pickup loop all the way back, because that entire area is open. So I just said, as we think about the playground itself, we have to just really think of the entire area that's there and what we would need to surround for the fencing.
Right.
So how would you go about that planning process and budgeting process? Is that for
I
us?
think
for us to move
we're we're in the preliminary stages of doing all that, Peter. So we're gonna get some proposal and some ideas, and we'll bring that back. Lisa probably will bring that back to you guys just for discussion, and then we'll go from there.
And there's, Mike, just one other question gets back to impact from the rains we had a couple weeks ago. How did the tennis courts come through that?
I don't believe the rain had any effect on the tennis courts. The biggest effect that we have is weather with cold.
Yeah, I just real quick. There has been some impact, not necessarily because of the rain. So when was it, Mike, that we did a repairs? Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, we had in the far court, the one closest to the school, we had a field. Let's call them dead spots, where there was no bounce on the ball, but there was a lot of cracks. So maybe a week or two ago, we were up there, and that court is actually starting to deteriorate again. So we do have some issues relating to the tennis court, and at some point, we're gonna need to have a long-term discussion in terms of what are we going to do to the court.
Yeah,
we spent a lot of money, in the past 2 years just trying to get the court playable. I had a quick discussion with Mark because come spring, he's gonna be all over us saying that we can't play because of the dead spots. So town-wide, that discussion needs to be had in terms of it doesn't necessarily have to be a relocation of the tennis court, but a matter of elevating the tennis court so it's not because we have wetlands right there, so it's sitting above the wetlands and it gives us a better playing surface.
Okay, I mean, it's a much bigger conversation, but it's a recurring issue.
Yes, it is.
And there was something will be done with the annex where you are at some point. It's currently in the town plan. Not sure what the current one is. It seems to change frequently, but there was a conversation about it actually moving the tennis courts over to where to central office, and if they leave that space where the annex is as open space rather than putting something else on it. It's not a conversation for this morning, but we really ought to be thinking about, are we throwing good money after bad every time we have to resurface a tennis court or raise a tennis court or do whatever, put up netting so the neighbors don't hear. I mean, it just seems to be an issue, both financially and and structurally, right? All right. Anything else from anybody?
Hey, Mike, good summary. You addressed basically, I had 4 or 5 questions. You addressed them all. Just quick question for you though, just in general, as you look at everything on your list there, is there anything that, so you're keeping an eye on that we should be tracking that remains, behind schedule that you're concerned about completing, that's going to come in sort of above, let's say, cost, and anything there from that extensive list that you think that either you're concerned about we should be tracking?
You mean other than capital or other than future capital?
Capital, yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing I could come up with is we got to start thinking about the air quality in the North House for humidity
Yeah.
and the HVAC systems that we have in the middle school. And that's going to start coming up with next year. It's just they are certainly aged, and it's just we're on borrowed time. I mean, I always like to look at it, you know, this equipment was put in the 60s. And if you have a 1960, even if it's Cadillac, I don't care how much maintenance you do to it, all the oil changes, you know, at some point it's going to stop driving. And that's just how I see some of this equipment that we have. And we've done a little bit of moving back and forth in the past because of the way the long term was supposed to be moving. But I think at this point, we have got to start trying to look at the school and try to start getting some of those items moved and replaced.
Okay,
Thanks.
we're going to move on to the Healthy Building Initiative. Peter?
Yeah, this is actually, we'll cover my comments on the minutes when we vote on the minutes, because one of the action items out of our June meeting on the minutes was to look at energy and lighting and illumination and things like that. That was sort of, we wanted to have a planning meeting in August, but I sort of worked through that all summer on my own. And the planning meeting came to me supplying a huge data dump to Phil and Mike. So we've done our planning, at least I made my recommendation on our next steps there. It is a funded project. I can get a little more into detail when we do some support Monday night when we give our update there. It basically revolves around maybe some photovoltaics, some canopies like Ridgefield High School is implementing for shade, and battery storage, and then utilizing that available energy in two ways. One would be arena lighting for football and track. We have a brand new track. There may lead into evening activities, so why not light it well for safety? And then having some battery backup from those photovoltaics for exactly what Phil had talked about earlier, which is the shelter, emergency, things like that. So we have another means to power now their power goes out. So that was sort of the work I did for the building health initiative this summer. Further meetings in June, I just gave my data dump to Phil and Mike. My meeting with the US Building Council. So we're making progress. I think we have a sound concept and plan, and we have a lot of ways of implementing it. That council actually provides free advisory services, free as goes. I'll report it down on that Monday night.
Okay, thanks. Phil, the year-end financial report.
Sure, thanks. So not a lot more to report out in terms of significant changes from the last time that we met. We've had some flip-flopping or some changes among the various accounts, but in general, we're pretty much close to where we think we thought we would have been back in May or June. So as it stands right now, we're going to end the year combined actual expenditure and encumbrances of close to 99% fully spent. So we will have a unexpended fund or a balance of 597,000, or roughly 1%. I gave a summary, really just in terms of what the main highlights were in terms of surpluses. Again, as we have pointed out over the past couple of years, a lot of the items that we have here that's driving our surplus really are stuff that were unanticipated. The big driver that we have is salaries, with a big one sticking out at $233,000. And we mentioned in previous meetings that was an offset to a professional services. We also had savings for FML and stuff like that. We also had a section or two that was unfilled last year. We had change in various positions. So as we think about the surplus, right, I think it was a good thing this year that we had those unanticipated savings, because that helped us to mitigate those areas that were over budget. We had expenditure more than budgeted For professional services, of course, as I just mentioned, property services, we had a few repairs outside of capital that had to be done. We had some drainage issues. We had some septic issues. We had failure of equipment at the middle school and the likes of that. We also had changes for pension in terms of the OPEB coming in, OPEB trust fund coming in less than anticipated, and various things like that. The surplus or the savings or unexpected savings, so to speak, also allowed us to mitigate our FY25 budget, where we had pre-purchasing of supplies and also of equipment. So all in all, I think this year was another solid year, in my opinion, of course. We were able to really manage the budget and really focus on the areas where we had shortfalls and really address issues that came up during the course of the year. So I have a long list of, I gave you pretty much all that I saw just as a review. Mentioned the OPEB, mentioned property services, electricity. I know, Michael, electricity was a big thing on your radar. But as we look in the analysis, I think we were, in terms of usage and cost, we were pretty much spot on. The significant drivers here, of course, was on the virtual net metering side. As I said, we had a carry forward credit, and also because we maxed out on the credits for the year, we weren't getting as a high as reimbursement. So we didn't have a generation cost, so that we had some savings there. But altogether, I think this was a pretty solid year. I think we are where we are, and it positioned us to be better for next year.
Well,
Bill, can you talk about this excess cost reimbursement issue? I want to understand it a little bit more, and then also want to understand, does the $41,000, I know it's small, but does the $41,000 that I guess is not yet finals, does that represent our sort of worst case, downside risk, or is there additional risk that we should be concerned about?
All right. So quick, I'm going to address all that. So quick thing with excess costs. So excess costs, this is for special education. There are three submittal of expenditures. There's one in December. There's one in February, and the final one in August. Our payment, so we get payments twice per year. We get a payment in February. We get a payment in May. So under the changes where that is concerned. So 75% of the overall payment happens in February, with a final 25% coming in May. In terms of where we are in terms of the downside risk, I think this is a good estimate. I don't think there's anything significant. I think we're pretty much solid in terms of tracking expenditures on the like. This just indicates, just in the world of SPED PPS, the various changes that could happen at any given time. And for us this year, the changes that we're seeing here really is focused on change in student needs and various placements that we have. In terms of the payment that could potentially happen, it's not going to come directly from the Board of Education. Of course, it's going to come from it's going to affect the town's payment. If we didn't have that, our surplus or unexpended balance would be more in the line of 550 in the low 500s. So I think this is a good estimate based on where we are right now. The auditor should be here, I think late October or so. So once they're here and we finalize our numbers, we may have to give a final update in terms of minor tweaks. I'm already seeing some tweaks that may need to happen. Nothing significant, of course. But further on in the year, I'll give a final update with that. Roundabout way, Michael, I'm not sure if that answered your question or provide any clarity.
No, that's good. I appreciate that. I was also just concerned about whether or not there was sort of additional cost here, but it sounds like it's going to be minimal. We've anticipated it, and we'll get that, I guess, the final sometime early next year. Is that right? Like March, April, something like that. I think you said in your note. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. So that's when the state normally sends out, they finalize their audit and they make the adjustment.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Peter?
Yeah, I was just gonna. follow on to sort of the discussion here. When I'm not quite sure how to state this, but when does the town get a Board of Ed check? Like when do they get the check from us saying, here's the final number, here's our surplus?
Right. So we will hopefully present to the Board of Finance at their next meeting in October. So I think the town will get our final report at that time, or semi-final report in October. There's another component that needs to be addressed, and that's our unexpended encumbrances from fiscal year 22-23. I did not report out on that because I'm seeing a little bit of a glitch that I'm trying to figure out that goes back to 2022. Not a negative, not a bad thing, but I just need to better understand what's driving that and if there's any rollover impact. It shouldn't be, but I'm not quite sure why that glitch happened. So I'm working through that. That's the reason why I did not report out on unexpended for 22-23. The good news is that there's going to be additional funds that will be returned. I'm just waiting to see what a final number will be. And I know we have what may seem to be a large number for open encumbrances for fiscal year 23-24.
Right.
And I have to remind myself of the year because there's a lot of years in my head, of course. A lot of that is stuff where you're waiting for parts, waiting for invoices. 50% of the overall cost does relate to special education. And for those, we're either waiting on supporting documentation for families. And for a small portion of that, maybe $100,000 to $150,000, we have not reached a settlement with families. Those are not new agreements. These are agreements that we have in place. But for whatever reasons, there's been some changes in the law. As Tracy has reminded us, that puts a burden of proof on us, on the district. So it's proven a little bit problematic in terms of reaching settlements in some of these cases.
And Phil, this is you're talking about the $860 or so thousand dollars of unliquidated encumbrances. Okay.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Dental claims were mentioned. I think we're below. And as I mentioned previously, for each year, as we gather more data, that affects the decision our budgeting for the coming year. Coming into fiscal year 24-25, we did notice that our claim experiences were trending a little bit on the lower end, and we did make adjustments for that going into 24-25 this current fiscal year. So
Okay.
that's the update for 23-24. I have not provided a report for our current fiscal year. We typically report out on that in October or so, because this is as of August. I just want to review our salary accounts and stuff like that, just to ensure that people are coded to the right accounts before I report out. As of this point, there are not any significant anomalies that I've noticed. We'll continue to monitor that. There are some cases that we have related to SPED that may require hearing, which may result in overall higher than expected legal fees. But for right now, we're kind of monitoring that to see ultimately where that will go. Still early in the year, but I think where we stand right now, we're in a good place. We do have some savings from our RFP that we issued last year, which will help to offset the reduction that was done by the Board of Finance at the end of the budget cycle last year. So that is really it for the update, unless there's any questions.
No, it's a good segue into the next agenda item, the change in non-lapsing account regulations.
Right. So current legislation says that a Board of Education with approval from the town can transfer up to 2% unexpended funds into a non-lapsing account. The change this year is that Municipal Board of Education no longer requires approval from the town to create a non-lapsing account. It only requires an approval from the Board of Education. All the existing stipulation remains, where it cannot exceed 2% of the current year's budget or previous year's budget, and it can only be used for educational expenses.
Can we stop there? It's 2% of the budget, of the overall budget.
2% of the overall budget.
So in our case, it would be $1 million
Correct.
or so.
Yes, or so, yes.
1.2.
And when does that go into effect?
It's currently in effect. It starts for fiscal year 23-24.
So theoretically, we don't have to turn back $597,000 if we choose not to.
That is correct.
Okay, that's a much larger discussion.
It is. But it's a significant change, right?
No. Yeah, it's a significant change.
So I definitely anticipate having further discussion, of course, with the Board of Finance, because they're going to have a different opinion on this. But we do have that option legally. We can do this.
So I'm a little bit unfamiliar with this. What does this mean in practice, Phil, Steve, for us in terms of we now have the choice as to whether or not to do that? Is that correct? And what does that mean for us in terms of like the go for it and access to the funds, et cetera? I'm not as familiar with this.
No, that's fine. So how do I do it? Okay. In previous years, the Board of Finance did not want a broad non-lapsing account. They've allowed us for specific items to carry forward money. So what would happen is that, let's say the board agrees that we're not going to turn this money over. We want to keep this money in a reserve for the Board of Education. Typically, what we would do, how I see it working is that if we have unanticipated expenditure that will cause us to run a deficit, we would then have a discussion with the board to say, hey, we do have this deficit, we do have this surplus here. Our recommendation is to use the surplus to offset the deficit. So it would increase our budget. It's not going to have any impact on our minimum budget requirement because these are existing funds that we are using.
It's like our own general fund.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
So it will be a point of contention with the Board of Finance if we choose to go down this route. So we should have that conversation with them. I don't know if we want to poke the beehive this fiscal year, given it's going to be October, but and I don't know if they're aware of it. But we need to have the conversation because it has been a bone of contention with the board. Including myself, Phil. Going back, God knows how many years.
Yeah, I do plan on providing this update to the Board of Finance when we meet, hopefully in October.
Okay.
And I think we have to come to some sort of agreement, right, in terms of how do we structure whatever it is. I think it's just good. It's good practice. Mm-hmm. And I've always made the argument that we would never just arbitrarily just spend money because it's there. And whatever reserve that we have would always be used primarily for education and to mitigate anything that's unanticipated. I like the idea of having a non-lapsing account. It allows you to have a different focus when you're budgeting, right? Not necessarily because you have this cushion and you're not going to budget to pad the non-lapsing account because that just doesn't make sense. But we do need to have that larger discussion with the Board of Finance, just so we're not constantly button heads.
Yeah, look, it's no different than the town running a increasingly larger general fund and not returning it to the taxpayers. And so it's a discussion we have to have because we can keep the $600,000 and pretty much do with it as we please. But you've always been good in saying, well, even if I had it, even if it was permitted, you wouldn't spend it without notifying the Board of Finance as to what's going on. But it's a much broader conversation because of the conversations we've had. I don't know, Phil, ever since you got on the scene 5 or 6, 7 years ago.
That is correct.
Yeah.
There's two elements. One is anticipating a surplus, and I guess the good news is from the perspective of education delivery and not having a surplus is I think we're fully staffed. But I'll let Julia address that in her agenda, right? I think we did. I mean, during the summer, we have everybody we wanted and all the positions filled, so we can anticipate we're spending money for quality teaching throughout the school year, so we won't have as much surplus.
Yeah,
To
almost, Peter, almost. I would say we are 99% fully staffed.
yeah, we might be one short. I
Yeah,
forget.
one or two.
But I know the Spanish department hired their teacher, which is key.
Yeah.
And then when we had non-lapsing account discussions in the past, it was kind of a very specific utilization or use of proceeds moving forward. So that disciplines the process. I mean, we can choose. We can say we really want this. We anticipate we may need this, whether we have a deficit or not. We can choose topically how we think we can apply it, right?
We just need to have a friendly conversation with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a thing, right? So our budget is not planned for us to have a surplus,
Right.
and our budget does not include any kind of contingency at all. We have been fortunate in the past couple of years, primarily because of COVID and the service that we have had, and because we have had thoughtful discussion in relation to SPED PPS in terms of any cost that we do anticipate. So we sort of kind of plan for that. This year could be challenging.
Okay. Well, look, a 1% budget variance, on a 50 some odd $1 million budget, that's pretty good budgeting, Phil, for something that has the complexity of a school budget and the uncertainty, everything we talked about today, what goes on in Mike's area, what goes on, you just don't know. So anyway, so we should talk a little bit more about how we're going to discuss this with the Board of Finance.
Definitely will.
Anything else?
I think that covers the overall update.
Okay.
I think we're good.
So can we move on to approval of the minutes? A motion to approve the minutes unless.
I just have my second comment on the minutes before we.
Okay.
His second item of action item was yours, Steve, when we wanted to do a 3-year outlook on keeping the lights on and revitalization, right? I think to Bill and Mike's credit, I think they have a 5-year outlook now that's pretty rigorous. They've been refining it all summer. And I think the public can anticipate some information about that, over the next month or two, right, Phil? So that was a huge push that they conducted this summer. So it met and exceeded your minutes action item. That's my takeaway after I read the minutes. So we have a really good beat on the nuts and bolts of a 5-year plan for modernization. Thanks to Mike and Phil's and Collier's inputs. So anticipate that in the next month or so to get that report. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
So we can go back to approving the minutes.
Yeah, no, sorry. I lost my train of thought. Okay, so, and some of these topics, by the way, are going to come up on Monday's retreat, for the whole board, and maybe the whole non-lapsing account conversation should be shared with the whole board.
It will be a part of the update.
Yeah. So that's good. Great. So the motion to approve the minutes.
As stated, I have a motion approved in June.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Thanks. Look, everything I've heard from, friends in the community is school started off great. People are very happy with the way the schools look. Kids are happy. Parents are happy. Happy kids, happy parents, happy town. So I guess that's good.
Yes, it
Good
is.
start. It's a good start.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you. All right. See you guys Monday.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great weekend, everyone.
All right. See you Monday afternoon. Thank you.